screen here. There we go. So for our center at UCSD, recognizing that the mission of MPRINT in its current version is to serve as a national resource to aggregate, present, expand the available knowledge, tools, and expertise in maternal and pediatric therapeutics to the broader research, regulatory science, and drug development communities. We think that's a great mission and should continue in 2.0. Maybe can you, this doesn't seem to want to advance. Maybe you can advance for me. Okay, next slide then. Or I try again? There we go. Okay, so in 1.0 at our center, what has made us unique in the services we provide to improve research outcomes, including having integrated core services, so pharmacometric and analytic chemistry under Jeremiah Momper, milk analytics under Lars Bodie, metabolomics and microbiome under Shirley Sunoda and Peter Dorstein. We have the human milk biorepository that's under my group. And then George Liu and Victor Nazay, mouse models translated to clinical models and vice versa. Across our center, we have extensive training capabilities. And we think what we do has been complementary to other networks, PTN and Impact, with projects that we have initiated, some of which you've heard about in the last day or so. We have expanded some of our service capabilities and network connections in the last couple of years. So in milk analytics, Lars has added the capacity to analyze micronutrients and vitamins over and above macronutrients and human oligosaccharides. In the milk biorepository, we have implemented, as you heard in previous talks, now standard paired maternal and infant blood collection along with milk collection in these home procedures. We've entertained and taken on under opportunity or support pool projects, customized clinical projects conducted with MPRINT partners. So instead of just using existing samples and existing metadata for secondary data analysis, we've taken on projects where we actually have to recruit new participants and conduct customized, tailored projects. And then we've contributed to a metabolomic drug library, which I'll talk about a bit more in a minute. Under the leadership of Lars Bodie in our group, we launched a year and a half ago the first of its kind Human Milk Institute at UCSD. And then this year at our second annual symposium, we held an MPRINT session focused on issues relevant to MPRINT and HMI. We further developed our partnership with PTN, and one of the things we did was take part in a joint session, a Shark Tank, if you will, which was really a lot of fun at the Pediatric Academic Society meeting this year. And we've established partnerships with other networks you may not have heard about and centers. One of those is CHARM, the collaborative to halt antibiotic resistant microbes, led by Victor Nazay at UCSD. So what have been our roadblocks? Ones that you've heard about today are awareness of the capabilities of MPRINT. We think that that is, an evolving process, but there isn't widespread general knowledge of what MPRINT does, and that we think has been a roadblock. Question mark whether or not there's been a lack of focus. Maybe we don't need focus, but that certainly is one thing you could say, that what is MPRINT known for, or what do people turn to us and say, this is what MPRINT is about? Well, we'll say over and over again, we have, we think, tremendous capacity to engage and train trainees or early faculty members, but lack resources to be able to do that effectively and comprehensively. And then a lack of ongoing continuity or connectivity with partners. So if we develop relationships with network partners, say on a project basis, what follows? What's the ongoing relationship with that partner that ensures that collaboration becomes embedded in and becomes part of MPRINT? And then in terms of, I mentioned that we take on these special projects with a human milk biorepository to conduct clinical studies. We really don't have infrastructural capacity to fulfill more than a very few requests to conduct these studies on behalf of partner investigators, although we would love to be able to build that out. So that's been a roadblock. And then sustainability is always a question. So some solutions we've brainstormed about. We would be very interested in integrating real-world data collection that we have from multiple sources at UCSD, and some of which are already part of MPRINT 1.0 with other MPRINT data sources such as EHR that we heard about yesterday. Develop, solidify, and expand partnerships with other networks such as PTN, and then just hearing the talk about MFMU and NRN, we think huge opportunities to develop partnerships with those networks and to build a culture of continuing collaboration, not just single project based. To build public-private partnerships, there's opportunities we believe there. As we mentioned, training is an important priority for us to increase funding support for trainees, and importantly, to engage those trainees as enduring partners in MPRINT 2.0. So that can they stay with us? Can they become mentors themselves? So how do we engage them over the long haul? Strategically plan applications for funding sources that are outside of the MPRINT core funding, and these could be to public and private agencies or sources that are complementary to and build on MPRINT 2.0. So we saw several funding announcements over the last several hours. Are these things that as MPRINT organization or structure we could go after strategically to help further our objectives? Another thought we had in terms of focus was to potentially adopt a broad-based theme or themes in MPRINT 2.0 as a designated focus across the MPRINT network that could expand our base appeal or recognition factor, if you will. And an example we came up with is preterm delivery. So, preterm babies, preterm milk, preterm delivery for the mom, medications that may be used to prevent preterm delivery, medications or diseases and their treatments that may be associated with preterm delivery, and understanding those mechanisms. Something like that we think could be threaded throughout MPRINT in 2.0. And then leverage existing analytical and computational tools. And so in the next few slides, I'll describe some examples of leveraging these tools for maternal pediatric clinical pharmacology. So first, host microbial metabolism. We'll talk a bit about discovering new bile acids, which are important communicators between host and microbes, microbe mast, and deepening our understanding of microbiome and intersection with drugs. Talk a bit more about the drug library that you heard Shirley Sonoda talk about earlier today, with the ability to annotate drugs and drug metabolites in samples without a priori knowledge about what's contained in those samples. Microbial metabolite knowledge base, so discovery of new microbial metabolites, creation of chemical pathways, and ability to discover new microbially formed drug metabolites. So the drug library, as was mentioned earlier, this is a UC-developed MS spectral library that contains greater than 5,000 drugs and drug metabolites. And so we're able to annotate these drugs in any matrix and make connections to endogenous chemicals and microbial metabolites. So this would be an important resource that could be expanded in 2.0. And then next, in terms of bile acids, thousands of new bile acids have been discovered using untargeted metabolomic tools and computational strategies, and we believe that bile acids and the language that microbes use to communicate with the host and regulate that host physiology is through these acids. Microbe assist, which is, microbe mast, leverages greater than 60,000 microbial monocultures, and one can search known and unknown spectra, and you link them to their microbial producers. This tool can help to discover known and unknown phenotypes or pathways of microbial drug metabolism. And then last, we are currently creating a microbial metabolite knowledge base that will be publicly available and a resource to capture structural information, microbial source, and phenotype of hundreds of thousands of microbial metabolites. And this database will be linked to other knowledge bases and tools to connect to microbe and metabolites. And it will enable us to begin to understand the function of the microbiome by understanding pathways of the metabolites. So I'll just end here by saying our vision for MPRINT 2.0 includes perhaps selecting a research theme that expands on our current strengths and provides some focus to broaden the services that we provide, so we appeal to more stakeholders, to deepen our connections to other networks, and like MFMU and Impact, and to capitalize on grant opportunities that many of us would pursue anyway, but maybe could be done in a more strategic way, to build our workforce through training and more investment in training, and then finally to leverage the analytical and computational tools that we have under development or ready to disseminate. So I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. So are there any comments or feedback from the panel on the on the vision for MPRINT 2.0? So please go ahead.
Thank you so much. That's really interesting, and thanks for the work you're doing. I was wondering on one of the areas on the modeling and simulation you mentioned, there's been a lot of work sort of in the pediatric space. How are you viewing growing that a little more at your center in terms of supporting more in the lactation or pregnancy realm?
So in terms of the modeling, are you referring to what I was talking about in the computational tools and so on? So I'm going to refer that to Dr. Tsunoda.
Is this on? Yeah. Hi, I think we've actually utilized a lot of our computational tools and strategies in the lactating and neonatal space, so to speak. I think we could grow our use of them in our pediatric space. We obviously have pediatricians as part of our CET, but our access to that population is a little less easy, I guess, because it's a sort of a different institution. But I think we can definitely leverage our mother-baby dyad population that Tina has a well-oiled machine for recruiting. But our tools are sort of agnostic. We can use them in any population. We can definitely use them in the pediatric population. I think we just, as a UCSD center, haven't focused so much on that patient population for MPRINT 1.0.
And well, actually, just to comment on that, actually, we work relatively closely. We've had collaborations, for example, with Jeremiah Momper, who is part of this program, and he's done a lot of work in the PBPK area for lactation and also in pediatrics as well. And Edmund Caparelli, who is a faculty member at UCSD that is closely involved in many of these projects. Right. But there's certainly, guys, can be some expansion outward. Were there other comments from the panel? Josh?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the presentation. And I'm amazed by the plan you have envisioned for the future to expand to the network and the CTs. So I wanted to echo that, actually, to comment on that, to expand the networks for the MPRINT and the CT, since it serves as national resources and not only conduct its own research, but I wanted to really provide expertise. So, and I wanted to acknowledge that the CETs has already started to engage in, and for example, with other networks, for example, the CUDDLE study you mentioned already, and the impact and that. So really, I think it is important, as you have already noted, that to develop a tangible and a plan that how could that be implemented, to not only to specific project, but establish some sort of infrastructure to for the future, collaborations to expand. And also, I wanted to also encourage that the collaboration you mentioned for to establish public-private partnership. So I wanted to encourage that effort to CET to explore really what would be the exactly infrastructure that the MPRINT could provide to facilitate collaborations with the public-private private partnership mechanism, maybe engaging with the foundation colleagues. I'm so glad to see that this time there is opportunity provided for the foundation colleagues. They were here yesterday. I haven't seen them today yet. They were able to submit an abstract for the joint project, NICHD co-funded the biomarker for preeclampsia project. So if there's a poster, I assume we'll be seeing that. So I think that may be a potential collaborative opportunities for an MPRINT hub to engage with. So I think, and also you mentioned the CUDDLE study. I asked a question this morning about the biospecimen repository. So I think that would also be another opportunity to further engage in for to facilitate future collaborations. So I'll stop there.
Thank you on both of those. And I think the collaboration probably that's the most fleshed out is the one with PTN and the CUDDLE study, for just sort of a natural collaboration. And I think that hopefully Rachel agrees that it could be expanded to have much more structure and legs on it, so to speak. The CUDDLE study is a perfect example of being able to work with PTN to be able to provide. Now we're working on a project where we're providing those couple of hundred samples that have been collected through the biorepository under those home collections circumstances, as was described in the earlier session, and comparing differences, contrasting and comparing what those look like compared to the samples that are collected under the CUDDLE study. And can data that ultimately goes in the label be enriched by these samples that are being collected if they are of sufficient quality and comparable to what's being collected? So we expand the age range. We can expand the number by this synergy between these two groups. I think that is a huge opportunity. And then the public-private partnership, I think, is one we haven't tapped into at all. And I brought it up previously because CUDDLE deals with off-patent drugs, but there's 100 new drugs out there in the last few years that are new drugs that'll be used by women of reproductive age that are not off-patent and are not part of CUDDLE, where they may not have a lactation study that's part of their post-marketing commitment, or they do. But is there an opportunity for industry to say MPRINT is a tremendous resource, either to give us guidance in how to do this study, or to provide tools, or to help us conduct the study, and that would be ways that we could advance research and good data much more efficiently and quickly. All right.
Thank you, Tina. So